I'm Kevin Davis. This is the Catholic Family Podcast. This is part two, so we'll do a very brief introduction. I'm here with Andrew. He is a currently serving member in the Army, and we're talking about Catholic patriotism. And we left off. We talked. We talked about a lot of patriotism and kind of about America and its founding. And Andrew's going to kind of bring us back a little bit what we talked about in part one and continue forward. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, right. Just to get into it, a little recap when we talked about the corporation versus the nation, just some ways that you can tell the difference between the corporation slaves because they are enslaved to this tyranny, and then the true countrymen of the U.S. is this: anyone who seeks to impose tyranny or defend it, they are a corporate slave. So people who say, "Hey, sorry, but we got to do it because essentially my bosses, my masters, they tell us we must do this," and they will use the flag as a symbol, and therefore they're also creating scandal because everyone's now associating that flag with something bad, which they've done a great job with. It's also the same thing with the Catholic name. Think about how many Protestants could have converted, but then they hear Pope Francis, quote Pope Francis, say something that is anti-Christian, and they go, "This can't be the church. This is the whore of Babylon." And they're right, but it's not the Catholic Church. The same thing is true for this. So the Corporation of America seeks to enthrone tyranny and completely disregard the Constitution. So many people break their constitutional oaths. That's also another sign of someone being a corporate slave. And the examples of the good countrymen are people who sacrifice for their nation. And what I mean by that is they are willing to essentially die or defend or lose their jobs for freedom, for the freedom to do what's right. That's also another thing I would correct if the nation would become Catholic is yes, the flag can stand for freedom, but it should be freedom from the enslavement of sin, the enslavement of the devil, which is where we're at right now with the corporation. They seek to enslave.
And sorry, real quickly, speaking of freedom, it's a really good point because I think freedom, people these days think of freedom as the freedom to do whatever I want. That's the libertarian. Yeah. That's the libertarian mindset in general. And libertarians, a bunch of morons. Yeah. They're putting forward their party. What do you call it? Their candidate, presidential candidate. He's like gay. It's so they're so ridiculous. It's really such an absurd thing because again, the liberty, the freedom to do anything is an absurdity because if one person's freedom to do something infringes on mine, and that's always going to happen, you can't. So it's the freedom to do what is right. That is true freedom. It's the freedom to do what God wants, the freedom to do what is right. And that's it all, even just temporarily, it makes more sense in as a term because you can't just say freedom for what? To do anything? No, of course not. Freedom to do what's right. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
You're absolutely right. Actually, I have a friend over here who I go to church with. He goes back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. Legally, I might add. He's like he comes over here. He serves the mass for us in America. Then he goes back and he'll go all around Mexico. He's part of a group there. I think it's an awesome group which teaches men virtues. They're like an anti-porn organization. It's funded by the mayor of Juarez in Mexico. And he actually told us, he's like, yeah, we teach these virtues. We also teach them about freedom. I'm like, oh, okay, freedom. Like freedom to do good or evil. And then he goes, no, freedom to do good or better. So essentially, we don't have the freedom. We know that's a Catholic principle. God gave us free will to do, to choose him. Not to say, oh, I can choose the devil or I can choose him. No, he didn't give you that freedom. He gave you the freedom so you could openly, lovingly choose God. And that's the thing. So we can either choose good or better. And that's what I think America's freedom should stand for. Even the founding fathers said that liberty and freedom is for a religious people, which is what we have now. Yeah. So, but anyway, the slaves, the corporate slaves, the ones who seek to take away your rights while saluting the flag sometimes, while saying, oh, I love my nation. They might have an American flag in the background. They may have a bald eagle statue, but they don't care about those things. They care about their paycheck. They care about their pensions. They care about going up in the hierarchy. They don't care about serving the nation. And true service is sacrifice, as our Lord has taught us. So the ones who sacrificed everything, the ones when there was forced mandates, right? When there was forced anything, said that goes against our constitutional oath, whether it be the police officers like Sheriff Lamb over in Arizona, who did not force any medical procedures or masks. Actually, St. Gertrude the Great, I believe Father McKenna talked about this in one of your podcasts, said that they were blessed with a really good sheriff who basically said, don't call me I'm not the
Hmm.
mask police. I'm not the forced medical procedure police. I'm not going to come there and tell them, put your mask on. Don't call me for that. I'm a police officer. I'm a sheriff. I don't do those things. I defend the people of Butler County. And he's great. He's a great example of a true American, or true Americans in any organization that did those things. That's I think a sure sign. Actually, the St. Patrick's Battalion, I think, are a good sign of true Americans, even though they were Irish immigrants who, when they came to America, joined the army, were sent to Mexico to basically do a war of conquest. They thought it was wrong, so they left and they fought for the other side. If I was president, I would give those descendants, I would give them all medals of honor and say those are true American countrymen, because they fought against tyranny, even if it was from their own country, which they were promised freedom when they came here, and now they're being told to go take everybody else's away. So they said that that's inconsistent, and they left. I think those are true Americans, and honestly, I think that would be amazing to see a little bit of restitution for the Mexicans and also for the Irish battalion, who were Americans at first when they came here. They were called papists in the army. Whenever they asked for a Catholic priest, they were given a King James Bible. There was certainly an anti-Catholic mentality whenever they saw them, because it was very Protestant, and they were not very nice to those immigrants. Just as we talked about earlier, I think in part one we talked about the Irish and the Italians who came here, who were hated because they were Catholic. But I will say that Bishop Sanborn did make a good statement. He said that America has never been a friend of the church, but it hasn't been an enemy. It has never done a government persecution where they sent out soldiers like the Cristeros in Mexico. They never did that to the church. Not to say that can't happen. I think it will happen unless we start to pray and fight for our nation more, and to really start to get involved. And I believe that you can serve the nation, but I believe you should serve it on your local level. Really get involved in local politics. Get involved. Who's your sheriff? Who's your mayor? Everyone always talks about, essentially vote, which I agree. You should vote, but I think you should vote for the local, because really we can make a lot of changes. The states still have power. They have constitutional state power, which the corporation pretended like they can take that away. They can't take that away. They're not above the Constitution. The Constitution gave them that power. So I believe if we band together, we pray hard, and we pray for the conversion of our leaders on the local level, I think it will rise. The cream will rise to the top. And I think overall, you could have a Catholic America without even changing the Constitution, because federally, they could just be hands off, and every state could individually convert and become Catholic. I'm not sure that's how that would happen. All I'm going to say is either one, if the Constitution were to change and it becomes Catholic, or the states change and they become Catholic, either one is a miracle. And either
Right.
one.
Well, and we can't put our faith in politics in terms of happiness and in
Yeah.
terms of war. That's true. And again, that part of the argument. Yeah, of course, but it is still something that we need to take part in, and it's something that we need
Yeah.
to have. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine a while back now, and they're big fans of the Holy Roman Empire, which is fine. It's great. I mean, it's back in the good old days. But then
Yeah.
I recently read a history book, the history of the world, pretty much. And as you go through it, I didn't write this down, but I'm pretty sure the Holy Roman Empire on 3 occasions put the Pope into exile, and certainly took away papal states.
Yeah.
People fought the Pope on many occasions. They were terrible at times. Sometimes they were great. Sometimes they were terrible. I mean, so it's like, it's just how it is. I mean, and I think that again, the people who are in charge are the ones who are going to make the decisions. Constantine was certainly a better emperor in the eyes of Catholics than, Diocletian or many of the others before him, or all of the others before him. And I think that's so you can't necessarily have this like all encompassing hope in your government, but
Yeah.
it's the other way too. You can't just despair either. It could change.
Sure.
It could change in one. Donald Trump's not going to do it because we know who he is, but maybe somehow after him it could, and it certainly will never happen if good men do nothing. That I think is just absolutely certain. You need someone, even if it's one great leader, at some point to rise up and to change it. And who's it going to be? Are we all just going to, the
Yeah.
next guy can do it? No, I don't know if that's the way.
Yeah. Again, if we don't fight for our nation, then we're basically just passing it off to our children. Hey, you can deal with this problem later on.
Yeah,
I'm basically gonna stand. I'm gonna stand aside. Let the forces of Antichrist come in, so then you can deal with it. We should do everything we can to stand up and also show as an example to our children This is what real patriotism looks like. Being you can't really be a true patriot unless you are a Catholic. You can't be a true man or a woman unless you're a Catholic. So you can't tell me that being a true Catholic means to completely desert your country, essentially,
Right.
like on an interior level. Um, and that brings us to our third section, which is the symbol of the real nation, and how it's also been stolen to be a symbol of the corporation, which is the flag. Now, the flag is a symbol of the nation. I've talked to multiple clergy about this and said I brought up their arguments. I said if the government has done evil things, we fought unjust wars. Can we show respect to the nation's flag because it's been used in bad, situations? And they said, yeah, it's not a symbol of the government; it's a symbol of the nation. And I believe it goes a little bit further. I believe it's the symbol of the true country, but also it's been stolen by the corporation. They said, "Oh yeah, look at us. We're still America. We're going to be against the Constitution. We're going to be against the founding fathers. We're going to be against everything this flag stands for, but we're still going to keep the flag." Just like Sister Lucy. Like, "Oh, we have Sister Lucy," even though this imposter Sister Lucy says the opposite of what the real one does. But no, I'm still Sister Lucy. No, you're not. You're an imposter. That's the corporation of America. They have stolen the symbol, and that's why it's been associated with so many evil things. Again, I don't like the whole guilt by association. So just because a gun was used in a murder doesn't mean we should say that gun is forever evil. It's not true. The gun didn't do anything wrong. It was the person who used it. And the symbol is the same thing. Okay, they use that symbol to do evil things and persecute freedom, but in reality, that symbol stands for freedom. So it stands for our nation. So we should definitely show respect to it. I think every father should teach their son who is in America how to fold the American flag, show respect, have a flagpole, put it up. You can also put the Sacred Heart of Jesus in the month of June and whatever kind of Catholic flag. But for, if you want to do one day out of the year or 1 month, whatever, teach them how to fold it. This is our nation's flag. This is why we fold it like this. This goes back to the foundation. This is what the stars represent. This is what the 13 stripes represent. This is what the red, white, and blue stands for, because then that instills love for fatherland. And again, I believe a good formula is faith, family, fatherland in that order, because you can't just say, oh, it's almost like the whole, like, we need prayer, work, and recreation. Most people will say, well, recreation is least important, so I'm just going to get rid of it. That's what they do to the fatherland. They'll say, well, it's the least important one, so I don't need it. But no, you truly need all three of those in that order. Obviously, if our nation goes full tyrannical and they start persecuting Catholics, no one's saying join that army. No one's saying join that force. It's our faith and our family first, then our country. Is there anything you want to say about that? Or should I continue?
I think it's not a bad point. I could probably do the Chesterton quote, because I think that's
But
it's a fairly fitting point to bring it up, because again, it's kind of Chesterton. To warn everyone, it's very much Chesterton. So it's pretty wordy, and it's
yeah,
probably about twice as long as it should be. But I'm going to read the whole thing because I honestly didn't take the time to cut it up. So bear with me. This is from Chesterton, and again, he wrote this around 100 years ago. So I don't know exactly when, but around 100 years ago. So this is Chesterton. The skepticism of the last 2 centuries has attacked patriotism as it has attacked all the other theoretic passions of mankind. And in the case of patriotism, the attack has been interesting and respectable because it has come from a set of modern writers who are not mere skeptics, but who really have an organic belief in philosophy and politics. This important and growing sect, together with many modern intellectuals of various schools, directly impugn the idea of patriotism as interfering with the larger sentiment of the love of humanity. Boy, does that sound familiar. To them, the particular is always the enemy of the general. That's such a good line. It's so true. To them, every nation is the rival of mankind. To them, in not a few instances, every man is the rival of mankind. And they bear a dim and not wholly agreeable resemblance to a certain kind of people who go about saying that nobody should go to church, since God is omnipresent and not to be found in churches. If you ask them whether they love humanity, they will say doubtlessly sincerely that they do. But if you ask them touching any of the classes that go to make up humanity, you will find that they hate them all. They hate kings, they hate priests, they hate soldiers, they hate sailors. They distrust men of science, they denounce the middle classes, they despair of working men, but they adore humanity. Only they always speak of humanity as if it were a curious foreign nation. They are dividing themselves more and more from men to exalt the strange race of mankind. They are ceasing to be human in the effort to be humane. The truth is, of course, that real universality is to be reached rather by convincing ourselves that we are in the best possible relation with our immediate surroundings. So God put us here. The man who loves his own children is much more universal, is much more fully in the general order than the man who dandles the infant hippopotamus or puts the young crocodile in a perambulator. It's so good. For in loving his own children, he is doing something which is, if I may use the phrase, far more essentially hippopotomic than dandling hippopotami. He is doing as they do. It is the same with patriotism. A man who loves humanity and ignores patriotism is ignoring humanity. The man who loves his country may not happen to pay extravagant verbal compliments to humanity, but he is paying to it the greatest of compliments, imitation. The fundamental spiritual advantage of patriotism and such sentiments is this: that by means of it all things are loved adequately, because all things are loved individually. Cosmopolitanism gives us one country, and it is good. Nationalism gives us 100 countries, and every one of them is the best. Cosmopolitanism offers a positive, patriotism a chorus of superlatives. Patriotism begins the praise of the world as the nearest thing, instead of beginning it at the most distant, and thus it ensures what is perhaps the most essential of all earthly considerations, that nothing upon earth shall go without its due appreciation. And that is all from Chesterton. And I thought it's amazing that was written 100 years ago, because there's so many points. It's like, wow, that sounds like he's writing about right now, doesn't it? I just some of his lines that are just to them the particular is always the enemy of the general. That's
Yep.
so true of our time. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good quote. I'm happy that you read that, even though, like how you said, it's a longer one, but
Yeah.
it's as if he's writing that right now and going into depth of the issues that we're dealing with right now. And
Totally.
I really appreciate what he said about that. Going forward back into the flag too, it's also not inherently evil. The flag, as I mentioned, I think in part one, if the flag was a if every star was a pentagram, right, and the flag was had a big Baphomet on it, then no one's defending that. If those are inherently evil things, but the stars and stripes, they're not, and they represent good things that we should pay homage to. Even though the revolution is not really the ideal way we wanted to have our nation birth, there is no nation on earth right now that's perfect, as Bishop Sanborn also said recently, that it's perfectly legitimate to show respect to the flag. Actually, I think it's relevant to share his quote right now in this topic, because his was I actually sent him a message on the questions for the rector, and I thought it was something that's relevant for the flag, right? I asked on there, basically what I told on this podcast, something along the lines of the government has done a lot of bad things. Should we show any kind of respect to the flag? Is it okay for an American or a Catholic American to wave the American flag? And this is what he said: it is perfectly legitimate to wave the American flag. And then he kept going on and basically said, no nation on earth right now is perfect. And essentially that in spite of all of its problems and its faults, well, we should show respect to one's nation's own flag, and that we should be proud of it, because that this nation never was an enemy. And I think in one of your other podcasts, I couldn't find the quote, but I think it was Matt who said this in one of your other ones, that I think it was Pius X who allowed the American flag
Mm-hmm.
to be on the gospel side of the sanctuary and of the altar, because he was showing so much love that the nation that would have allowed the faith to flourish. He also was the Pope who took America off the missionary status. Until that time, I think the 19th century, it was considered missionary, and then eventually America became the ones who would go be missionaries because of how much it flourished here. We have a lot to thank Mother Cabrini and the Jesuits for that. I actually just watched your documentary or tour on Mount St. Michael and the how the Jesuits built that. So there is a lot of Catholic history that's in America. You can't just look at America as, oh, it's a Freemasonic built, born, and Protestant ran country, and then completely neglect all the Catholic victories that we've had here, and all the beautiful cathedrals that we have here, all the immigrants that came here from Italy and Ireland, and a bunch of other ones that came here, and the faith did flourish here. And again, that's also the tragedy of Vatican II. Vatican II didn't just completely destroy the faith, but it also destroyed many nations because of it.
Yeah, but also there are the most amount of traditional Catholics in America. That's not even questionable. But it's by quite a lot. I mean, Mexico, I guess maybe up there. I actually don't even know with Mexico. Maybe Mexico in the U.S. France probably in third. But exactly that. So calm down on that rhetoric that it's that it, hated, it's anti-Catholic, because it's generally not true. And again, okay, say how great France is. Okay, well, what about Napoleon? Or what
Yeah,
about Macron right now? He's worse than Napoleon. And so you have bad leadership in any country. Even Catholic countries have had many bad leaders. And so just because it's founded on Catholic, the say the Constitution, or your whatever you want to call it, your country's laws are founded on Catholic principles. It doesn't always mean that it's going to be this perfect bastion of Catholicism.
yeah,
It's just how it works. Bad people govern. Sometimes good people govern. And I mean, how many saints are kings and queens? Not that many. I
yeah.
mean, so more baddies than goodies for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would mean a lot to the world, and to also to show respect to our nation, to show respect to God, to say, even though my nation is, well, has been overthrown by a corporation, I'm not going to let that taint my obligation or my love toward the true native land. What obviously our true native land is in heaven, and our love to our country is like mirroring that. Just as we love our mother and father who's on earth, we love our mother and father who's in heaven. And if someone were to take a photo of your mom and go do evil things, and that's a symbol of their evil, you wouldn't just be like, well, I don't want to see my mom anymore. I don't want to see images of her, because it's now tainted by association. It's been so many bad things have happened with that symbol of my mother. I'm not even going to worry about it. She's a Protestant. She's a this, I'm not. You would never say those things. You would devoutly pray the rosary for her conversion. And that's what I'm asking for the Catholic patriot to do. I'm asking for you to pray the rosary for our nation. Actually, Father Jenkins said that he asks everybody to pray 10 Our Fathers and 10 prayers to St. Michael the Archangel every day for God to show mercy to our country. And you can also include for her conversion. So all the Sedevacantist groups I've come across with, Bishop Sanborn, Father Jenkins, I believe St. Gertrude the Great has a similar opinion. I know every 4th of July they come out and they bring the American flag, only for one time a year on 4th of July. So they show respect to our nation too. The CMRI, Father Geckel, Father Cepeda, all say show respect to the flag. And I think you can also just do it from a pure Catholic perspective. You can just say, this is the nation that has allowed the faith to flourish. I'm going to show respect to that. I'm going to show respect and pay homage to that. Like again, St. Pius X allowing it to be in the sanctuary on the gospel side, which is the higher side. I believe in the other podcast, I'm not sure his name, but one of them mentioned that it's the higher side of the gospel, and that in any other nation you always have the Vatican City flag on the gospel side, and then the nations on the epistle side. Well, he allowed the American one to be on the gospel side to show that much more respect for a nation that has allowed our faith to flourish. And again, where sin abounds, grace abounds more. There is no doubt that this nation is littered with sin, and we are looking to get punished unless we pray hard for its conversion, which I believe everyone should be doing.
Well, with the flags in the church, I can tell you that my German friends are always rather shocked that we have an American flag in the churches. But it is interesting, and I know, again, it's one of those things that when you go somewhere that you don't know, somewhere that's new, you didn't grow up, you don't know the customs and traditions. It's easy to make those judgments, snap judgments. That's kind of strange, or that's not what we do. But it's like, well, obviously, you know, people wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't allowed. Americans wouldn't just be like, oh, no, Pope didn't say we could, but we're doing it anyway. Of course not. No one would ever do it. So obviously there is permission to do it, and it is different. It is a different. I've never seen it in Europe. Anyone ever have a flag? It's just, but there's also a very large lack of patriotism in Europe. Patriotism is like beaten out of you since you're a child. Like, you cannot be a patriot. Especially in Germany. I think France is different. French, they're kind of insane. They just riot about everything. But the Germans, yeah, they really are told to hate themselves and to truly hate their country. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that always wakes me up to it, because it's like, well, if that's what the evil leadership is saying, then why? Why do they want the people to hate their country? And that's again thought provoking, right? I think it should be. Well, probably because they want people to hate their country and to not want to fight for their country and the good of their
Yeah.
country, because then, well, the baddies can do whatever they want.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. The hatred of fatherland is very close to the hatred of fathers. And if they can attack the Pope, they can attack the father, they can attack the fatherland. Those are all things that stand in the way of globalist agendas. Actually, I'm not. This is not an argument necessarily that I would only go with, but movies do tell a lot of secrets. That's ran by Freemasons, and one of their codes is they have to tell people what they're doing before they do it, and they often do it through movies. I don't endorse Marvel, but in the first Captain America movie, when I did watch Marvel movies, when Captain America is fighting the villain, at one point he tells him, he's like, "Why are you fighting for this nation? I've seen the future. There are no flags."
Hmm.
So he's given a prediction of a globalist antichrist world. Why would you fight for this nation? It's going to go away eventually. I believe that should ring true for us if we
Hmm.
don't stand up for our nation, don't stand up for the evil that the corporation has done. We stand for the virtues of freedom and for a Catholic America. We can maybe at least postpone a little of their agenda, or throw a bunch of wrenches in their agendas to take away nations and put a globalist one flag, one ruler. Um, that brings me going. Actually, I think that ends my flag talk. Again, if anybody wants to talk to me about this, I'm open to talk more about these topics. But to keep it short, I want to keep going on to section 4. Now, these are clergy quotes in support of our nation. So I did talk to, I sent a message to Bishop Sanborn. He already answered that it's perfectly legitimate to wave the American flag, that there is no perfect nation on earth. In spite of all of its issues, we should be proud of the flag. Again, I already talked about Father Jenkins. When I talked to Father Geckel, his response was, "Hello, Andrew. I think the simple answer is that we can love our country and hope and pray that it becomes more Catholic. We love the place while at the same time hating the evils that it supports." I would put in parentheses the corporation right there, but this is just exactly what he said. "Whenever this question comes up, I'm reminded of saints like Saint Sebastian, who, before he was martyred, told the emperor that he would fight for the emperor and die for Rome, but would not praise the emperor for killing Christians. There were thousands of Roman soldiers that were Christians and fought for Rome while at the same time gladly giving their lives for Christ." He then continued, "It often sounds to me that the sentiment comes from people that have grown up thinking that America was the greatest thing in the world, then realized later that it was actually very corrupt and had such a Freemasonic origin. For myself, we grew up understanding and being taught how anti-Catholic our country was and those origins, but we were always taught to love our country and to be patriotic at the same time. I don't see a contradiction." From Pope Pius XII, "The American people have a great genius for splendid and unselfish actions. Into the hands of America, God has placed the destinies of a afflicted mankind." I think we can all relate to that now with the Sedevacantists being here more than anywhere else. And I think Mexico would be a close second. Um, Pius X, "I love these Americans. They are the blooming youth of Catholicism. Tell them I gladly give my apostolic blessing to their whole country." From
Real quick, that's such an important one from Pius X. I think
Yeah,
that's because again that's not him saying, "Hey, everything you've done has been great." It's like, as a country, the papacy, and thus Christ approve of you. I mean, that's. But again, the point being that it's not saying, each individual thing. Oh, your country was founded on Masonic values. No, it's like, no, you, from what you were built on, from what you are, you have done good things. You have not. You're not communist. You're not Russia. I mean, I guarantee you, if Pius X was around, he obviously died really right before the communist uprising in Russia, but he wouldn't have said that about Russia. He couldn't have, obviously. So I mean, it's a good point to remember. Again, he did say that, and that to me, that's almost the biggest one. That's our last saint, pope,
yeah,
and it's canonized at least, and I think that we need to take that to heart. That America's not that bad.
yeah. Or if it was that bad, then why hasn't God taken it out yet? He's giving us this time now. Like again, the moment that people are alive, like let's say your mother's a Protestant, been a Protestant her whole life, and she's still alive, but then you walk around saying it's hopeless. She's been a Protestant her whole life. It's never going to stop. I think, well, then why is God allowing her to live? There's a chance for her to convert until she's out of the game, until she's dead. There's still a chance for her to become Catholic, and I believe that's very true for our nation. God is clearly giving us the opportunity to pray and to fight for our nation. Fight for the real nation, to pray for the real nation. And if we just give up in advance and then predict that that's never going to happen, then we're presuming that God is going to just wipe it out, and that there is no way to get out of this. It's again, it's the Home Alone of political side of things, and I think it does reek of despair. And I can't live like that. As a Catholic man, we are called to go into Catholic action, to be men of devotion, of virtue, and to be true patriots. I cannot support people who say, I want nothing to do with this. I understand where they come from. That's why I'm trying to tell them there are two Americas, just like there's two Sister Lucy's. There is the Novus Ordo, then there's the Royal Catholic Church, but they both, like, one is for trying to pretend to be one, and that's where we can create our distinction, because nobody's calling Catholics to support evil things. No Catholic is saying support an unjust war, or support this anti-pope, or support this anti-president. We're saying that there is a true nation to love, and it is America, not the corporation. And in Pope Leo the 13th's writing, he did say this: to love both countries, that of earth below and that of heaven above, is the essential duty of Christians. So, like you said before, it's not just like a suggestion. Like, we are called to love both as a reflection. So our nation on earth that reflects heaven. So we should pray for her conversion. And if we die not seeing that goal, we at least died trying. How many people say, I'm going to die trying, and then they give up on this one? Like, I'm going to try to do everything I can to raise my kids right. And if they still fall away from the faith, I did everything I could. So why are you giving up on your nation then? Why are you already checked out in advance? Pope Leo the 13th also said, patriotism is the stimulus of so many virtues and of so many noble acts of heroism when kept within the bounds of the law of Christ. So obviously he's talking about that. Don't support the unjust stuff that it tries to do in its name. The corporation goes and does some unjust war. We're not going to support that. Actually, most wars that were fought by America, the American people did not support it. They did not support Vietnam. They didn't even support World War II in the beginning. They were very hesitant to want to go get involved in anything overseas, because we have plenty of issues here, even in those more golden eras. So I think that overall, that kind of wraps up most of my quotes, because I covered a lot of the other stuff before. I think that if anyone is having difficulty after they watch both this part one and part two about patriotism, they should consult clergy that they trust. Because when I consulted my clergy, I found that I can have love for my nation. You can go buy an American flag. You can show respect to it, look at it, pray for the nation's conversion. No one's saying that everything's okay. Things are worse now more than ever. I'm not denying that. The corruption, the deception, the false flags, the false paradigms, it's really bad now. I mean, it looks really bad. But if we're still here and our hearts are still beating, and we still have the faith, we still have masses that can be said for our nation, we can still pray the rosary for it. We can still be truly Catholic patriots. And I don't think that we should give up on this, because I think if you were to give up on this, it's only a matter of time before you start to give up on everything. The second that anything falls short of your expectations, you're going to reevaluate it, and then you're going to just dismiss everything. Eventually, you could end up being a Home Alone with that mentality. So that's really all my points I have. I think that there is a chance for our nation to convert. Nobody knows when the end is, not even the angels in heaven, except God alone. He knows when the end is, so we could be looking at the end. It could be the Antichrist right around the corner, or God may bless us, and He may allow for a great monarch to come up, as many saints have talked about. Saint Francis de Paul believes in the great monarch, and who knows? I mean, I know George Washington had a vision of a woman in white that would save America through her purity. Maybe we're looking at that if we pray for it. Maybe God will bless this nation. It becomes the great monarch, and then we have a time of peace. That's obviously a stretch, but all I'm saying is
but again, I have to go back to Diocletian and Constantine. Diocletian was killing thousands of Catholics around the world because they didn't worship his crazy idols. I mean, he was a crazy guy. He was a hardcore pagan. Like that's why he did it. And then very shortly after was Constantine, and then the entire empire was Catholic, like overnight. So again, I think we just have to remember that it can happen, and if it's through a great monarch, if it's through whatever it's going to be, it can happen, and I think that's absolutely worth our prayers and worth doing things too. And I think not necessarily political, but it's something that I've thought about a lot and prayed about, and we've talked to guys here in Germany, and I think it's really important that men get together in their communities, which typically means that their parishes, because our community, maybe not, but especially at our parishes, get together with men and
Yeah.
do hard things, do manly things. And if that means, I think the best thing probably is going to make sure you help the church. If it's building the, working out, painting the church, whatever, find someone in your parish who needs help, especially if it's an old lady or something, go and say, hey, guys, we're going to get together once every 2 or 3 months and we're going to do something hard. We're going to do some, even if it's hiking up a mountain, because I do
Yeah.
think that these types of, and this is what Chesterton said. You start with your family and your little societies, your little groups, the individuals, and that's how you build something. And I think that if people see that, and you said earlier, if someone comes to your parish and you're just a bunch of people who you don't talk to each other, or if you do, it's just crying about politics all the time, or I hate this and I hate,
Yeah.
why would you stay in that parish if you're new to it? You're looking for, you mentioned it before, you're looking for hope, you're looking for strength. And I think we men need to be stronger. Speaking for myself, find
Yeah.
how do you do that? And I think in men together are stronger, in a group. And so do things together, find ways to do that. And I really think that, having men's groups that get together and they talk about it. What can we do? It doesn't have to be political at all. Go do something societal. It's probably more important. Get
Yeah.
together, pray the rosary. Get the men together. How awesome is it? Even if you have a small parish, if you have a big parish, get all the men together
Yeah.
and do it once every 6 months. Whatever, just do it one time. Pray the rosary together. Sing the Salve Regina, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, that's how you change things, and that's going to change our mentalities of, okay, let's be doers.
Yeah.
Let's stop whining and crying about how bad everything is, and especially it was during COVID time. It's just, life's so, everything so, yeah, just okay. And you know what? COVID was actually a big boon for Catholicism. A lot of people became traditional Catholics because of it. That's how God works. When things are the hardest, as you said, that's where grace comes from. And I think that's important to remember. And
Well,
let's be doers, guys, and doers and
yes.
patriots.
Imagine someone telling you, hey, we're going to go pray outside an abortion clinic. And then they say they're already on their way to get an abortion. I have zero hope for those people. But how
Yeah,
many stories have changed where a woman was inside, like about to get an abortion, and she looked outside the window and saw a woman quietly praying for her, comes outside crying and says, "Why do you love me so much?" And then, so someone who else could have been like, "Oh, there's no hope in doing something like that. Just give up. Like, they're going to kill the babies. Let them do it." That is such a beacon of despair right there, because you're ignoring all those stories of people who truly love those people who are doing evil things, and then they stopped through their prayers that God has used, soften the heart of that woman, so that way she wouldn't have killed that kid. And for all, who knows, maybe she's converted now. We can pray for that. And again, if you follow Dominic's prefigurements, he makes it the suggestion that Rome is America is the new Rome. But what did Rome become? Rome converted. So if we're going to follow those prefigurements, who knows? If we don't have a little bit of hope, then we're going to be in despair. What if America converted, became the great monarch, and we had a time of peace before the end? If we don't pray for it, if we don't fight for it, we're not going to get it. Why do you think God took away the Pope? He took away the Pope because nobody cared, no one was praying, nobody was following their faith, so he took it away from us. And he can give it back whenever he deems that it's necessary for us to have it back for our salvation. If he doesn't give it back, then we don't deserve it. But if we fight, if we love our fellow countrymen, if we show respect to the flag, if we have hope in our local government, in our local communities, if we know who our sheriff is, our mayor, what they support, because there have been people who've been able to stop bad things from happening in their local town because they are so involved in their town meetings, because they're so involved in their charities and all the things that they do locally. So I do think that there is absolute hope in your local area, but not the corporation, which unfortunately has consumed most of those higher entities of the government. Um, like Father McKenna said, there is no obligation to vote when there is two evils. It is permitted to vote for the lesser of two evils. But in today's age, I can see where people get confused. They say, "Oh, well, one masquerades as a good person, but really is pretty bad. One person's full on evil. I don't know who to vote for." I'm not saying you need to go out there and do that. I think that you should get out there and should vote, but I think you should vote for your local, because everyone puts all this emphasis on the presidency. But in reality, we can really change our local towns, our states, and by doing that, that's where we have most control over. Is who's our mayor, who's our governor, and even some governors. I would say it's very difficult to know. If your vote matters with that. But all I want to say is I think you should absolutely try. I think you should absolutely go out there, Catholic action, pray the rosary, go out there, be a part of your community, show faith. So when people look around to their community, but mainly the secular people, we need to reclaim the name Catholic. Most people think about Catholic and they think about Novus Ordo. They think about bad people. They think about pedophiles. If we go out there and if we fight and we change the name, it's like, hey, you know what? The Catholics in this town, they're always at the town meeting. They're always voting for the mayor. They're always fighting. They're always getting into charities. They're always going out there giving food to the homeless. They're always providing shelter. They are the true patriots. You could truly convert the nation by just your example, and be loud about it. They say, what motivates you to do all this for our nation? Tell them Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for our sins, and the Holy Catholic Church, outside of which there is no salvation. That is what motivates me to be out here to fight for my nation, because God commands us to do it. After watching this podcast, I strongly urge to pray a rosary for the country and to get involved in your local town meetings, mayors, sheriffs. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but no one ever talks about this. No one ever says. They always focus on the voting and the presidency. They never talk about who their local government is, who their state governor is, and they don't even know what their state flag looks like. Show respect to the national flag, the true symbol of the country, but also do some research and learn about your state government and your state flag. Say prayers to Jesus for the conversion of both. Who knows? Maybe Georgia one day will become Catholic. Maybe Texas one day will become Catholic, and they can be beacons for the true faith. And for who knows? Maybe the whole country would convert after that, and then we can change the world through that way. But I don't think we should just be okay with checking out and then just kind of watching the fireworks, because I would say that would be pretty sinful, because things are going to happen, and you're just like, I'm in for the ride. And that's a really horrible, despairing mentality to be in, because we do have a chance right now, or else God would have taken us out or taken out the country already if he didn't give us his chance. That's all I got to say about that.
Amen to that. No, perfect way to wrap it up. If anyone wants to check out more info from Andrew, you can go over to his YouTube channel, Crusader Filmworks. You guys have, I don't know, have you had anything recently? I don't know if I've seen. I've been busy lately, but I know you guys have videos coming up every now and then, semi regularly. So go check that out. Please subscribe over there. I'm sure we'll have Andrew on again sometime to talk about, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, perhaps. Who, you never know. But we'll have him on again soon for sure. Go check out Crusader Filmworks. Please like, share, subscribe, comment on this. And again, please let us know what you think. I mean, please comment. I will be there in the comment section. I imagine Andrew will as well. We'd like to have a conversation with you. If you have questions, again, about the flag, about anything that we talked about, concerns, comments, just let us know. I mean, it really does. We want this to be interactive, especially a program like this. This is one where I think it'd be nice to hear, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that America is just absolutely broken and unfixable? Okay, well, let us know. I mean, let's comment about it. Let's chat about it in the comment section. We disagree with you, but let's have a nice conversation in the comments on YouTube. Andrew, it's been a pleasure. I definitely enjoyed it. I know it's a topic we both get very passionate about. Hopefully everyone stuck with us. Thank you if you did. And until next time, Andrew, everyone else, God bless you.